All right, Chuck Klosterman is here. I texted him and said, I really want to talk about Survivor. I'm really into that season. He loves Survivor as much or more than anyone I know. And he just texted back, I want to talk about Michael Jordan.
Okay, well, first of all, I can't imagine that I love Survivor more than anyone you know. I feel like you kind of live in a Survivor world.
You're up there. You're in the inner circle of people that love it the most. I mean, we've also grown up with it too. It's been almost 20 years for us.
Okay, so there's been 40 seasons. I've seen 39 of them. So I guess that makes me a pretty big fan. I'm certainly a loyal fan, I guess. I will say this though, I don't feel as though the show has evolved, in a good way.
Okay, why?
Well, okay. It did for a long time. For a long period, Survivor kept getting better and better because, it moved more and more into the idea of the game strategy, right? And that became real interesting because initially I think that they thought Survivor was just, this is reality program. We had to explain that this fireman has firefighter friends back in New York. We had to talk about why the mom misses her kids. And that became less and less and less. And the show got better and better and better. As it became less popular, the people who stuck with it, I think, continually liked it more. But now it's in this strange spot where it's only nonstop strategy, and you can't even get a sense from watching the game what's actually happening in the kind of insular world of this. Like, I feel like I'm just constantly getting information that ends up being completely meaningless when the vote actually happens. I also, how do you feel about these fire tokens? I think that's dumb.
I didn't like them.
If people crashed on a desert island and had to survive, I don't think they'd be like, one of the first things we need to do is fabricate an economy. Why would that? That's a weird thing to add. It's like it's moving it back toward actual life, I guess. The fact that there's all previous winners on this season, in some ways, is good because no one's gonna dump the rice or try to create chaos for no reason because people who do that never win. But as a consequence, it's almost like I don't know. I watch this show and I almost find my mind drifting toward other things while I'm watching it, which is weird because nothing else in the world is happening.
So I think they made two mistakes. One is that there's just too many people on the show still. We're heading toward the season finale is a week from now. The jury it seems like there's 40 people now watching. They did that, they move into the Extinction Island when you get voted out. But then they didn't get rid of any of the people on Extinction Island or have any sort of elimination thing or anything with them. And, it's only an hour a week. I find myself more fascinated by the people on the Extinction Island because they went into it a little bit in the 2 hour yesterday. And, that one lady had been there really since the first day. She's like, I know every inch of this island.
That's like, Boston Rob's wife, or is that Natalie?
Natalie.
Because Natalie seems like the best pure athlete on the show this night, right?
Oh, yeah. And she's like, I've explored every inch of the island. I know it like the back of my hand. Like, she's turning into Tom Hanks from Castaway. But then they have all these other people there, and it's like, why do you have 20 people on Extinction Island?
I know what the logic on that was. I think the thinking was we don't want to get into a situation where there's characters that people actually want to see who disappear maybe for the very reason that they're interesting, that the other sort of champions realize, well, this person has a lot of charisma or whatever, let's get rid of him, so they can keep someone like Tyson or whatever in the game.
Yeah.
That doesn't bother me as much. It just is a situation, I feel like, where maybe they have played this concept to its logical conclusion. I mean, it's like, none of the people involved with the show anymore seem to have a problem dealing with the adversity of the conditions. They're almost like, I'd rather be here than I would be at home or whatever. That's like, I like when the people were like, there was one season, I think maybe it was even season 2 or season 3, where they kind of made a tactical error and put them in Africa in almost like a desert savanna, and it was like a real dangerous, terrible place. As a viewer, that's kind of what I'm looking for. I don't want to see people this comfortable being able to purchase like a 24-ounce tub of peanut butter. That doesn't really seem like a survival world, you know? I keep watching it. I like one of the only shows that me and my wife just always have watched together, and you know, it's kind of like watching a local baseball team where it's better the more you watch it, like it improves over time. It, it I if I wish I could be a consultant on the show. I think there's a lot of things that they could do that would make it a more interesting deal, but they're on this trajectory and they're not going off.
So, name like two of the things you think they should tweak.
I do think that they need to sort of move back in the direction toward of a more sort of, for lack of a better term, dangerous setting where just the experience of being there is part of the kind of the assault on the competitor.
What about Florida?
Well, what?
You said you wanted a more dangerous setting. We should just have it in Florida. It's very dangerous there right now.
I suppose, yeah. People just show up on,
yeah, they just walk in without masks.
I also, like, I said earlier, this will seem like a contradiction, but it's just like sometimes you overcompensate. Initially, reality programming was too much based around the personalities of these people. But now I would like a little more understanding of what their interpersonal, non-game relationship is. Because that's not... It really has become, maybe this is why you like it, maybe, it really has become closer to conventional sports in that the only people to really logically root for are just the best players. Like, that's the only thing left to find. Like why would, like, I think a lot of people like someone like Boston Rob now as a character because he's good at playing the game, but that's only because the only slice of his personality we see is his gameplay. Like, all the other aspects of his persona, if I recall, were pretty unlikable. So it was like, oh, he's this guy I don't like, but he's good at this game. Now we've taken away that first part, and it would be like if we were following boxing, but we didn't get to know anything about Roberto Duran's life, or anything about Thomas Hearns' life, or anything about Marvin Hagler's life. We just saw them box. Now, I don't know why I just used a bunch of guys who boxed in 1981, but what I'm saying is, like, it would be odd to watch sports and have no relationship to the people we're watching. Because it's not Survivor, the game of Survivor is not that fucking interesting. It's not so fascinating that I don't care about the people involved.
Well, I think they should have gone 90-minute episodes, because I do think the show is missing the two guys hanging around the campfire who didn't realize that they had blank in common, or the two people who didn't get along who now they're finding some common ground, or the flip side, people really starting to annoy each other, which you can set up over 5-10 minutes. But I will say, though, I think there's two reasons I'm really interested in this season. One is just the star power has been awesome, and everybody's won, everybody's been successful. And more importantly, they know each other's moves because they've watched all the previous seasons. And I thought, like, last night, there was a really interesting moment when we're in the tribal council, and Denise, who's doing her whole woe is me routine, trying to throw Nick off the scent that they're not actually going to blindside him. I don't know. I use rice. I just figure if I'm going to go to Extinction Island, I want some rice in my stomach. Does the whole thing. And they cut to the jury, and two of the jury people are like, oh, she's fucking making a move right now. This is all bullshit. They know each other so well. It's like watching basketball where the two teams have played 6 games in a playoff series, and they just kind of know each other's plays. So I think that part's been really fun. And then the second piece is just, at this point, all of them are just so good at the game. It feels like in a lot of ways they've advanced it. If you're going to compare it to sports where it's like in basketball, they just know better shots to take now. In Survivor, they kind of know the moves to make now, which it's like there's a game beyond a game beyond a game now.
No, but isn't that going to complicate the voting? Because typically at the end of Survivor, there is always this fundamental question. Am I going to vote for the winner to be the person who played the best or the person I like the most. And the tradition of Survivor, that since the very first season, is to say you've got to vote for the person who plays the best. But they've all won before, so they're all good at the game. It's hard. It's going to be really hard for any of these people to establish that they played, that they somehow played better, made bolder moves. They all have such a high awareness of each other. Like in their kind of culture, they're all super famous, right? Like it's always weird when you hear these people on Survivor talk about Survivor. It's so ingrained in their psychology that like every that somebody like Russell or one of these characters is like this towering Wilt Chamberlain like figure from the past. Like they I don't know how they're going to gauge who should win this outside of like almost their own fandom, if that makes sense. I don't know. It's strange that I have so many complaints about this, but as I watched it last night, and then I was watching it on delay because I recorded it and started it later, and I got your text. So then I was almost watching it more critically and more seriously. And I don't know. I have disappointments.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though, because they all know this game so well, right? You would think the one thing that couldn't happen, and in the earlier part of the season with Boston Rob, everyone was really wary of like letting him run the game. Oh, here he goes. He's going to control it. We can't let him control it. We're all too smart to have somebody pulling the strings. And yet this happens every season as this goes along and they become suspicious of who's the string puller. But then there's somebody who actually is pulling the strings and they can see it, but they don't see it. Like this year, it's been Tony the last like 4 or 5 episodes where he's running the game now. And yet every time they go to, oh, who should we vote out? It's always, nobody ever kind of looks at this and goes, well, wait a second. Tony hasn't won an immunity challenge yet. Like, let's just take this fucking guy out because he's going to go to the final. We know who his 3 people are. And I don't know whether it's fatigue, hunger, sleep deprivation, all the things that go in where your brain just stops working as well. But I'm always amazed that they can't see, like right around this point when there's 7 left. When there's 7 left, that's when you can flip the game. And that none of them could see that Tony was running the game. So I still feel like the basic DNA of Survivor is still working the way that it did in 2000.
Maybe I've just seen enough of it.
I think you have.
It's starting to all seem the same to me. Like I have a hard time sometimes recalling what happened earlier in the game. I combine it with past seasons. I don't know. Maybe.
Well, I'll tell you this. I'd kind of stopped watching it. You said you've seen 39 seasons. I've probably seen somewhere between 27 and 30. And sometimes the sameness of the show, there would just be years where if I'm not in on the first episode, I'm just like, I'm out. Or they start piling up on my DVR and, I just never end up watching them. This year, there's so many people I liked in the show. And I really like that they went old school and grabbed some people from the 2000s.
I mean, Survivor now has become something that I don't experience that much with television, which is a show I don't really have to watch while I'm watching it. Like I can return texts and I can have various conversations. I can read while I'm watching it. The other shows I watch tend to be, for lack of a better term, like very good, like complicated or whatever. That I want to actually see what's happening.
Yeah.
That there would be a real, like you can sort of space out for long stretches of Survivor and there's no consequence.